Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to go through how to host Craw4AI into your VPS server. One of the community members reached out with actually a video from Cole, put a link somewhere on the video, and this is exactly what I was looking for. I was searching for something similar. I'm going to actually go through step by step on how to deploy this into your VPS so you can actually have an API call to Call and actually use that within either your script or your NA8 or make if you wanted to. Without further ado, let's jump into how to do all this. All right, so Jerry was actually the one providing this information into the community. And after watching Cole, I actually liked it, went into the documentation where is actually open source LLM friendly web crawler and scraper. They are actually currently revamping the whole Docker deployment to make it actually more easy. And so therefore, when I read into this was the documentation provided from the Craw4AI team, I actually went ahead and actually clean up and make it actually way easier to deploy. Link of the GitHub and the script will actually be provided as we speak. It is assumed that for following this video, you're going to have actually a VPS and you actually have it working with Coolify, which is actually the orchestration we're using. If this is something that you want to actually dive deeper on how to do self-hosting, NA8, NoCodeDB, Minio, etc., feel free to actually join my Skool community where I discuss about AI, automation, but also self-hosting option. So without further ado, we are now in the Coolify. And all we have to do is I'm going to actually create a new project and I'm going to load a public repository. And the public repository over there is actually mine. And we can actually take it from there. I can go into clone. So I'm going to clone this. I'm going to choose a server. You will only have one server on your side. I have actually two in this case. On you, you're going to choose the first one. I'm going to click and paste the link of the repository. Check repository over there. What we're going to want to do, change the build pack to Docker Compose. And basically what it does is like the system now is actually looking for a Docker Compose file, which is actually docker-compose. And it's not actually YAML this way. It's actually, we remove the A over there. So in case you want to deploy another GitHub on your VPS, you could actually just look into the naming convention, docker compose.yaml or YML in this case. Back over there, so if you obviously don't put this properly, it will not actually find the Docker Compose and will not be able to start anything. Then I'm going to click on continue. Now it's actually loading this. The Docker Compose is actually been loaded. To confirm, and you should actually see something happening within a couple of minutes. If everything goes well, you should actually see a small file over there. That's the raw data. And what I want to do in this case, I'm just going to rename this. And I'm going to rename it Craw4AI. I'm going to generate a domain name as well. And now Coolify is actually going to, through actually sleep.io, we see actually a way on how to do that in the Skool community where you have actually your custom domain name. In this case, for the demo purpose, I'm just going to leave this by default. And if everything goes well now, nothing else actually is required on this page. You're going to click on save. There is actually one modification we have to do on the environment variable over there. We already have some that has been actually put, which is good. There's actually two fields that you need to fill out here in this case. The Craw4AI API token. This is actually the key. This is your key, your own key. So you make it yourself. So in this case, for the demo purpose, I'm going to do test 1, 2, 3. And then on the OpenAI API key, it's actually just if you wanted to put your API key over there. So I'm going to put one for the demo purpose. I'm going to actually delete this afterward at one point. But basically, we want to go over here, click on update, and update on this one as well, just to be sure. Going back to general, if everything goes well now, if I click on deploy, this should actually go. I'm going to show debug log as well. This is going to now download the entire Craw4AI Docker image available in the hub. When we say the hub is the Docker hub, it's actually a website where all the Docker images are being hosted. And if you see here, it's actually pulling my latest and greatest commit, which is init Craw4AI script, downloading the image, as I've been saying, and in a couple of seconds, we should actually have a working Docker Compose image. And then I'm going to show you how we can actually go through the whole setup, for example, with a script. I've actually made a script, and the script is also available. I'll put the link in the description down below. And then I'm going to explain and showcase a workflow on NA8. Just a quick way to actually invoke your API within actually NA8. If I'm reading what this is actually installing, if I'm reading the document over there, that's actually how I came up with the curl command over there. This is obviously the script. This is a Python script. We can obviously easily transcribe this into a curl request, which is a curl is something that you can invoke into your terminal. I'm on Mac, so I'm using actually terminal, but if you actually are on Windows, you could actually potentially run this into CMD as well if you wanted to. And all we do here, without going into too much details on the script, all we want to do here, we are calling actually the crawler. That's actually the URL that we're going to call. And we are actually passing the URL and the priority. And then we're adding a token, which is actually authorization bearer token, which has been set up into the environment variable. As you see here, the container has now started. Everything looks good. If you want to confirm, go to logs. And then from there, we can see, so we're using like a UV-corn for the front end. And now I can see that I'm requesting, like the service has started over there. If you want to confirm this, what you can do is you can actually copy this over there, this URL. I'm going to test on my browser. I'm not sure if that's going to work over here, but otherwise I'm going to show you the other methods. If I go to Hills, this is supposed to actually return something. It mentioned bad gateway because I obviously forget the port. If I go to log, here you see it mentioned the log is actually listening on 11235. So obviously I'm actually missing the port 11235. And now I have actually status healthy, available slot 2, memory usage 66%, and CPU usage 44%. If you refresh this page, we have actually obviously the CPU going up and down. That's actually normal. This is actually the VPS CPU being actually called. And the beauty of actually Craw4AI is that it's running on a very, very small amount of memory, which is actually something I appreciate a lot. And so that being said, we can actually click on Streamlogs if you wanted to. And I can see I've actually called this page, the Hills page, quite often. Now, I'm going to show you a script that I've actually made as well. So I'm going to bring my terminal here, right? And so I'm going to go to my dev folders, and then I can do Python, and I can actually call crawl.py. And here is actually available extraction. We have actually basic or LLM. That's actually the two I've been using the most. I'm going to do basic for this instance for the demonstration purpose. And then I'm going to go through NA8 and show you how we can actually do that and call the API within actually NA8. So if I'm choosing one, I want to enter the URL that I want to scrape. So I want to scrape the documentation. For instance, I'm going to go back over there. I'm going to go here. I'm going to make this bigger maybe. All right, I want to enter the priority number 1. And now task ID. So that means that the system has received the entire system, like the entire request. And within a couple of seconds, I'm getting actually some information back, like the content in Markdown. That's actually the content in Markdown. I'm only displaying the first 1,000 characters over there on the terminal, not to overwhelm everything. And here's the content of the HTML. And I have actually saved this information into a crawl_result.johnson. In case you wanted to see how this script is working under the hood, you can actually go into to that repo, my repo over there on the GitHub, link in the description still below. And I have actually something called crawler_test.py. All you have to do here is that you need to actually remove, or you need to call out, modify basically this URL over there and your API token with actually your actual URL, right? The URL that's been generated over there. That's actually something that you will have to modify on the script. So you have actually to go on line 8. And down below, I have actually another token over there, line 80. I'm going to have to modify this as well to match actually your API key. So whatever the password or whatever the API key you come with, going to have to actually be reflected on the API token, right? Okay, so it's working fine with one script. But the beauty of actually having an API, so obviously I have nothing running on my computers. I don't have the Docker running on my computers at all. The beauty of actually running this into the API, sorry, the API, is that I can actually call an NA8 workflow, and we can actually start from there. So I can trigger this manually. I can go to HTTP, and I can make actually a post request. I'm gonna actually just take the URL over there. So I'm gonna call this URL. I'm gonna go back to NA8, and I'm gonna actually go on the post. So sorry, one more time, post URL. I'm gonna put this, actually, I'm gonna open this so you can see further. It's actually better. We can actually see from there, it's actually the port 11235. And then I want to call actually the crawl. That's actually the endpoint. This is what we call actually. Technically speaking, it's calling the endpoint. That's within the code. We have actually a path called crawl, and that's actually the endpoint we're calling. So the system knows that we want to actually send an API request. I'm gonna cancel or close this, right? For the authentication, we want to go generic credential type, and we want to go for header authentication. I'm gonna actually create a new one. So I'm gonna scroll down here, create a new credential, right? Under name, we're gonna put authorization. And then on the value, you might actually have to keep this in mind. We want to actually have bearer. So I'm gonna actually copy over there with the API key. So basically what we want to do is we would like to pass this. This is the text that we're going to have, the value that we're going to have to pass over there. So bearer space, and then your API key. In my case, it's test123. On your side, is going to be different. Or it's going to be actually the value that you've actually put into your Coolify. I'm going to click on, I'm going to rename this as well. I'm going to do Craw4AI demo. I'm going to click on save. This is actually now saved over there. Right. And now what I want to do is I want to send the body, and I want to send the body as actually Johnson. And we can actually say, okay, I want to pass URL. Remember, we were actually passing, if you look into the documentation, sorry, let me actually go back to the Docker. If we actually look into what we're passing here, we're passing actually Johnson, we're passing a URL and the name of the URL and then the priority. So in this case, we're going to do the same. I'm going to pass the URL of the documentation. So I'm going to take this wall link over here. And I'm going to actually add another parameters, and it's going to be priority. I'm going to put 1 in this case. Okay, so that's being said, that should actually be now, if I'm actually hitting this and I'm clicking on test, we should actually have exactly what we were supposed to get. We get a task ID. So that means that the API has now received this information, something you can actually use as well on NA8. I know it's not an NA8 video, but you can actually always pin this data if you wanted to, and you can always actually use, you don't have to make a post every time, a post request if you wanted to. In this case, it's not very important because we're using our own API, so it's our own server. So we are actually less limited in terms of rate limit, but using the pin at the top on NA8 is actually something very helpful if you are actually doing API request. What we're gonna do now, we're actually gonna do another HTTP module, and then what we're gonna do, a get. It's a get, okay? And I'm gonna actually suggest as well what you do in order to actually avoid having any complication when you copy the URL. You can actually just put column 11235, which is actually the port that we're using, right? Now I'm gonna click on save, and every time you're gonna copy this domain over here, it's gonna come with actually the ports, and you will actually avoid a lot of troubleshooting, say why this doesn't work. So everything is actually working fine. Now I'm copying the URL. I'm going into a get. It's a get request, okay? And I'm gonna open the expression so you can see further. Basically, what we need to do is slash, and then we're passing actually the task ID coming from the first HTTP post request, obviously. We need to authenticate, so I'm going to click on generic credential type, and then I can actually select header authentication, and you're going to choose your header authentication API key that you've actually just set up the node before. Once this is done, click on test, and if everything goes well, you should actually have a result like this with a status completed. That's okay because we spent some time setting the node in between. What I suggest you do is I would suggest that you actually take this, search for the wait, and put a wait of 5 seconds in between. This way, that means that the post request will actually wait, or sorry, the post request will actually receive the actual request, we're going to have the waiting 5 seconds, and that's usually enough for the get to actually be, or the request to be processed. I'm going to do one more test over here. I'm going to just show you Docker deployment, for example. I can go open this request over here. The URL, I can actually modify this. All right, and now I'm clicking test workflow. I'm waiting 5 seconds, and now I should actually have something over there showing return in green, which is the case, complete. And if I go in, if I'm looking to the log as well, something you can also see is that if you actually put 1,000, click on refresh, stream the logs, and then actually open this up fully if you wanted to, you can actually then see what's the request ID. So in this case, you see I have a task 904 E355, etc., etc. This is actually the ID that was actually returned over there. That's actually how you actually host a Docker Compose image into your VPS, and I don't know, maybe in 15 minutes, how you can actually then call this into your NA8 workflow. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was actually helpful. If this is actually something that you are interested in, I'm actually going into a deeper version on the Skool community where I'm actually discussing about AI, automation, SaaS, and also self-hosting option. If this is actually something that you would actually like to see deeper, feel free to join. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video.